excuse me with my speech today. I was letting Pam know I just got Invisalign, so I'm talking a little weird, but I got to keep them in. I got to keep those teeth healthy too. So we are going to talk about how food is medicine and is comfort today. And so we'll talk about a couple of the different things as we're creating this dish. I don't know how many of you are actually doing that with us, or if you plan to just kind of chime in and then do it on your own at another time. Either way is absolutely fine. But my approach is to really empower folks to understand the importance of how food and also lifestyle. So food is medicine, lifestyle is medicine. So how does that help us not only prevent and manage chronic disease, but also to treat and reverse chronic disease? Because 60% of us as Americans have at least one chronic health condition, and 40% of us have two. So we are definitely dealing with things out there. And so we really want to optimize how we are living, but I also want to make sure it's easy and it's palatable. It's exciting, it's tasty, it's something that is sustainable and that you're excited to do. So what I'm going to do is we're going to jump in. I've got some things cooking already on the stove. So this first item is, think about what you want to put underneath the stir fry. So right here, I've got let me show you, a can of coconut milk heating up. So we want to bring that to boiling, because what I chose to do, and one of the things that I like to do is the simple native forest simple coconut milk, because all it is organic coconut milk and filtered water. So very, very simple. There's no guar gum. There's no type of gum or binder in it. And so you basically just open a can and you put it in your stainless pot. You bring it to a boil, and then getting some rice. And so one thing with rice can carry arsenic, which is one of those heavy metals. And so if you go with sushi rice, that's the least arsenic. So I have this at a slow boil. And so with any of your grains, you do want to rinse it. So rinse it first in cool water, use a colander to drain it. I think somebody has their video, or not their video, but their sound on. So if you want to just check, make sure you guys are muted. That will be helpful for the recording. Thank you.
Cindi, I don't know if you can hear me. It's Pam. And I just noticed that we had muted you for a second. So are you now unmuted?
I am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think I saw Paula mention that. So if you heard, hopefully you heard about the coconut milk and the rice. I don't know, Pam, if you want to confirm.
No, so, I don't think we heard the answer. I know Sandra had asked the question here. Do you know if coconut milk can be used in a rice cooker without causing buildup? And that may be what you answered while we had you muted.
The rice cookers that I'm familiar with is you have that liquid underneath, and then you've got the basket with the rice in it. I am not sure what would happen to that. I would probably go with rice or maybe a broth for that. I would just do it over the stove. It is super, super easy. You just have to, and it boils really quick. So just, get a couple bubbles going, turn it to simmer, and then we'll put a lid on it and just let it go. So I'm going to check on it throughout the time that we're making the stir fry. But also, so there's a few bubbles. I'm just going to wait a few more time or a little bit more before I put it to simmer. Some other options that you can do. You mentioned, I think somebody asked about wild rice. You can do wild rice. That takes longer. So know that wild rice is probably the longest one to cook. Just did that the other night, the coconut milk. So you got to be careful. Like, it made a brown crust at the bottom, maybe of the rice cooker. Yes. So I don't know that that's the best option. I would just do it over the stove in a saucepan. So I'm gonna do that. You can also do quinoa, and I like the multicolor quinoa just because of the diversity. And this is super easy. Any grain too, just know that it is going to triple in size. So if you want to make 3 cups of rice or quinoa, then you do 1 cup of dry. So it just depends on how much you want to put underneath, like how many servings. So our stir fry recipe will give about 4 servings, 4 hefty servings. So keep that in mind. So if you want to go a little bit light, you want to go a little heavy, depends on where you are. I like to also use for my liquid for quinoa is just get like a vegetable broth. It has a little bit more savoriness than just water. So this alone with the quinoa, you don't need to season it. You don't need to add anything else. It really does a good job on that sense. Another option, so if you're watching your carbs, you can do what's called miracle noodles. There's also miracle rice. What this is, it's a konjac root. So it's a starch. It has very little to no calories, like there's 2 servings in this little bag, and it's 5 calories per serving. So konjac, like when we talk about food as medicine, most of that is coming from your plants, your colorful plants. That can be fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains. There's over 25,000 different bioactive phytonutrients, phytochemicals. They don't provide calories, they provide other substances that are acting as medicine, basically, in our body. And so in the case of this konjac root, that is a type of prebiotic. And prebiotics are basically the fertilizer for your probiotics, your bacteria in your gut. So our bacteria, our microbiome is very robust. It's changing day to day and it's very metabolically active. So it's going to dictate what your body composition is, what your weight is, if your blood sugar, your cholesterol levels. It impacts everything. I mean, when we say the foundation of health is in our gut, we mean it. And so we really want to serve our microbiome well. And this is one way you can do it at a low carb way. And super easy. All you do is open this up and you put it in a colander, you rinse it under cool water for a minute, and then you're going to put it in a skillet just over medium heat, nothing in it. You don't have to oil it. You don't have to put anything in it. You just want to dry up the water because it's going to hold a lot of water. And then you basically add it to whatever you want to do. So in this case, you would just put it on your plate, or you could add it right to the stir fry when you're done. So super easy ways. Again, all about ease. All right, so that is our starch. I wanted to, I have everything else cut up and prepped. So we mentioned if you guys were gonna do this with us to do that as well, because that would make it easier for you. But I wanted to mention about the leek, because if you haven't used leeks before, they're very dirty. They hold a lot of dirt in between the layers. So one of the best ways to cut these is just cut off the end. And then I cut off a lot of the leaves, and then you make a big split down the center, not all the way through, but this way you can see all the different layers. And then you can rinse it. You can put it under water and rinse through the layers to get that dirt out. There's nothing worse than getting dirt in your stir fry. And then just cutting it, it's good to have like a nice knife to cut anything that you're going to be doing in the kitchen. And so it's just cutting your slivers of leek. And leeks come into that family of allium. So it comes with your onions, your shallots, your garlic. And so those are a bioreactive that has quercetin. And that's a awesome NRF2 upregulator, which helps us neutralize the oxidative stress in our cells. Also helps to support the detoxification effort. Cut these into the slices. Use that one. When you get to start getting to the dark green, that then gets a little bit woody. So just know your preferences on if you want to stay more on the light side of things and not the real dark. Okay, now we have this big ceramic pan. like to do as big as possible because we put a lot of vegetables in there, and otherwise we're constantly spilling onto the stove. So try to get a big pan. Other options that you can do is the woks. So like if you don't have high iron, these are really nice. If you have low iron, these are ideal to use. So you've got your cast iron skillet. And so that is an actual wok that you can stir fry right in there. And otherwise, like just like this pan is that is a ceramic base, but this is another one that I love. These are a Caraway brand. So, yeah, I don't have any financial connection with them, but very heavy, and they clean really easy, which is nice. So very safe, non-toxic. All right, so we are ready to cook. So here in the pan, we're going to start with the oil. Put my little recipe there. So what I like to use, especially with stir fries, anything Asian, I think the sesame oil works really nice. Now you can use other oils. Like for cooking, you don't want to use olive oil. Olive oil can burn as soon as you get to medium to higher heat cooking. That's oxidation. So that's what we want to neutralize. So for higher heat cooking, you can use a toasted sesame oil, and you want to go with more of an expeller pressed unrefined. Because when you have a refined oil, that means they're using heat and or chemicals to process that oil, to remove the contaminants, and that's not as healthy for us. So really try to go for a unrefined, like a virgin oil. And so avocado oil is a nice high heat cooking oil. You can also do a virgin coconut oil. That would also work. Just depends if you don't mind the taste of coconut. So here we're going to start with 4 tablespoons. This is a new bottle. Hang on. I've tested this before. So you're just going to put 4 tablespoons. Wish we had the smell-o-vision.
Cindi, I was going to just mention that Sarah had asked about the name of your wok. Can you share that with us?
The name of the wok, this one is Kasayan, Kasian house. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Then we also have Anita asking about the ceramic pan. Did you say that was the Caraway brand?
Yeah. Yep.
So Caraway.
Caraway.
Okay.
Yeah. They're one of the best non-toxic, really heavy, really sturdy. They have all different sizes and shapes. So I think just recently they came out even with smaller ones than that, because that's a big, big skillet. All right, so we got the oil cooking, and then we're going to add some red pepper. So red pepper has a bioactive called capsaicin. So if you ever like had pain, like your muscles hurt, you would get like that capsaicin cream. So it does help to neutralize kind of that pain, but it also acts as a thermogenic for fat. So it helps you burn a little bit more fat. And it also helps to keep our blood vessels a little more flexible. So there are a lot of really positives to some of these ingredients that we're going to be using. But I don't like it super hot. My husband does. So I'm glad I'm making it tonight, not him. So I can use a little bit less. But I don't even think I'm going to use the full teaspoon. So use it to, I mean, any type of herb and spice is really therapeutic. We just don't use them enough. And what I encourage doing is, you can get glass jars for your spices, and then just check the expiration. It's not going to go bad, but it's not going to be as fresh. Just keep putting like maybe a little piece of masking tape on there with a date, and then go to a bulk store and get just a small amount so that you can get through it while it's still fresh and it's not going to go bad. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of or 2 garlic cloves, and I actually do 2 teaspoons of the mint. So here's another thing that I do really easy. And, you can do a fresh garlic clove, which is awesome. I like to get just the minced garlic that's in a jar. We go through this really fast. We use it a lot in our cooking. And then a silicone, since we're going to be cooking chicken, I would use a silicone utensil. And so we just want to stir this up, get the get the garlic and the pepper basically into the oil so that you might even see a little bit of browning of both, just to get it aromatic and really going to absorb into the meat. But before we add the chicken, and some of you have different needs nutritionally, so we did provide you personalized recommendations. So, if you didn't want to use chicken, you could absolutely cut up some organic non-GMO tofu or tempeh. So there are options if you didn't want to use a protein, an animal protein. So now we're going to add the leeks. So anytime you have onion, and if you don't have leeks, you don't have access to that, sometimes the stores are out of them. You can get any color onion. You could do a red onion, you could do a yellow onion, whatever you prefer. But I would put the onion in first, and then you're just going to stir it around. Leeks are also a source of prebiotic, as well as the allium that we talked about. So and that's why I like to do leeks. Onions are also a prebiotic, because when we think about supporting our microbiome, we think about fermented foods, we think about probiotic supplements, but if we want to have a robust garden, so think about if you have a vegetable garden or a flower garden, without feeding it, it really doesn't flourish. So it's the same thing with our own microbiome. We need to feed it. And this is one of the ways that we feed it, is with the prebiotic. So it's kind of like a feed and feed. All right, I'm just going to check. With the rice, you don't really want to get in there and stir it while it's cooking. So I'm just going to keep checking it, make sure that it's getting to that point where it's ready to go underneath the stir fry and it's not past that. And then I'm just going to turn it off and let it sit. All right, so we're just going to cook this a little bit longer, let it brown. And so the next thing we're going to add is the chicken. And so in regards to chicken, you can see in the recipe, we call it for pastured chicken. And I know between chicken and eggs, there's a lot of confusion in regards to, do I do organic? Do I do pastured? What do I need to do? In the case of chicken, your gold standard is actually pastured chicken. What that means is the hens are let out to roam on a surface that is at least 108 square feet. And so they are feeding on what they should be feeding on: grasses and seeds and berries and worms and insects. So they're eating their natural diet. Whereas if it's cage-free, they may or may not get outside. And if they're outside, that it might be a very small fenced-in area. So they're not really getting the full experience of the field to feast on. And then in regards to organic, that basically means that they're stuck in a warehouse. They are not necessarily outside to roam. They're typically going to be fed organic feed, which means no chemicals, no pesticides, which is awesome, no antibiotics, but it does not mean that it's always the best, because that feed could include corn, could include wheat, could include other gluten grains. So if you're sensitive to those types of things, whatever the animal is eating, you're also eating, and that might affect you as well.
Cindi, that was so interesting here. I guess we have a couple of questions that came in around chicken. Well, the first one is actually related to the rice, which is, Paul is asking, when you're using 1 can of coconut milk, how much sushi rice are you adding?
Excellent question. I didn't tell you that, did I? 1 cup. 1 cup.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. And then another question related to rice. Sandra is asking about how long does the rice need to be cooled after cooking in order for it to become a resistant starch?
Ah, love, love, love that. Gosh, you're so smart. So resistant starch is also one of those things our gut loves. It really acts as a prebiotic and a fuel system for our microbiome. And what that means is you cook white rice or white potatoes and you let them cool. I would say after you cooked it, you would put, and I would just do it in water in that case, like if you're doing it for the resistant starch purpose versus like what we're doing is something a little bit different. But I would just make those in water and then you're going to cool it in the fridge overnight. So you would want to have a good overnight and then the next day and on, you could eat it cool.
Okay, that was helpful. I think the one question here related to chicken is when you're talking about pastured chicken, is that the same as free range?
No, so that's kind of what I was saying is like you've got pastured and then you've got cage free, which is more like a free range. So the labeling titles are really confusing. Like you've really got to know the background behind what they can get away with and what it actually means. So that's why, and so look at your like natural co-ops, natural food co-ops, possibly even a Whole Foods, or look at your vicinity, wherever you live. A lot of times there are local farms that are raising their hens pasture raised. So their eggs, their chicken. Otherwise, there's a lot of things, other places that you can go online and have it shipped to you. So you can get that higher quality protein, but you got to search. All right, we are ready for the chicken. So I've already cut it up into little cubes. So you can cut it however you want. I like to have small pieces. Just so it's easier to eat. But you can make like thin strips, you can make bigger chunks. It's all personal preference on how you cut your chicken. And I love to have a little bit of that caramelized on the onion. So you want to have a little bit of that brown or not. You don't have to. And so now we just want to make sure this is the most important thing is that we're cooking the chicken through. So while that's cooking, the next thing in, and so we're really thinking about putting items in that are better to cook quicker, or like most of the vegetables we put in and it's literally less than a minute. So you want to keep it almost a little bit crisp because the longer you cook vegetables, you're gonna take away some of that nutrient value. So it's just enough, especially with stir fries. That's why I love stir fries because it's just a little bit cooked, and then you've got the full benefit of the flavor and the nutrient value. So with mushrooms, I forgot to bring out one. Happy that we're in my kitchen. We can look at a whole bunch of different things. So what I do, you can get fresh mushrooms, but I've had too many of those become science projects in our fridge. So I started getting these dried mushrooms. So in this case, I got shiitake, but they have stir fry mushrooms, they have oyster mushrooms. There's all kinds of different ones that you can do. And all you need to do is put that in a bowl with some boiling water, like 1 cup of boiling water on top and let it sit for about 30 minutes. So that's what I did. And then I ended up cutting it because a lot of those shiitake mushrooms, if you can see, they're big. And we don't like having like the big chunks of it. So then I cut those up so that they're ready to go. Another option I've done before too are just frozen mushrooms. And then in this case, I just let them sit out maybe overnight, like in the fridge so that they're defrosted. And then I rinse them because they can carry a little bit of sand in them. And then we cut those up as well. So just a couple easier ways to do it and making sure that it's resourceful and you're not gonna waste food. Because I know I've done that many a time.
So Cindy, Sarah's asking a question about, she's noticed that you don't have salt listed in the recipe. And then do you recommend avoiding salt and pepper?
No, I don't. I don't at all. I think with the flavors that we're going to be putting in here, because we're going to have tamari, so that's going to have some natural sodium in it, and then we'll have some marin. I feel like there's enough flavor in here. We have never missed it, and we're salters. So I use Himalayan salt in pretty much everything that we make. So I am not against it. I would say too, like the sources, going with a sea salt, but with where the source is coming from, your Himalayan sea salt, which is that pink salt, or Celtic, are probably two of the, or not Celtic, I'm sorry, Redmond sea salt from Utah. Those are probably the two cleanest options that are out there. Again, just based on the source of where it's coming from. But no, you can absolutely put a little bit of salt and pepper if you want, or just wait, like try it. Take a sample of it when you're done. And if you feel like you need a little something, you can add some into it and just stir it in. I'm not personally a big pepper person. So I don't do that in a lot of my cooking, but that's just a personal preference. There's nothing wrong with it. But we do use a lot of the Himalayan salt in our cooking.
Paula just offered up in the chat a really great note about pastured chicken coming from North Pasture Farms. She said that they do deliver throughout the Twin Cities, and they've got pasture-raised beef, chicken, pork, and bison. So she does have an email address in the chat string if anyone is interested.
Excellent. And so I don't think it's the same one. Like they're in the Twin Cities area. I'm not sure where everyone's coming from. There's also TC farms, like Twin City farms. They also are smaller farms, but your farmers markets are also an excellent place to go. I know we're getting into the fall and winter, so they're not as common, but that's another way to get them. All right, so this is ready. And I'm going to add the mushrooms. I tend to go a little heavy on all of the vegetables. I may have even gone a little bit over. You're not, I gave you an estimate in regards to the portion size for the different vegetables. But even when you think about vegetables and why the recipe is called rainbow vegetables, is when I talk about those bioactives, so 25,000 plus phytonutrients in our plants, every color represents different health benefits. So really striving to get at least one serving a day from each color of the rainbow between your fruits and your vegetables in particular. And I like to suggest 3 times more vegetables than fruit because fruit has a lot more natural sugar in it.
Cindy, Sarah's asking a question. What do you think about Costco's organic chicken?
So, I can't speak to like a specific store, but organic, remember, does not mean that hen is outside eating its natural diet. It's getting fed organic grain. So there's no junk in it, like chemicals or pesticides, antibiotics, but it might be more of an inflammatory grain for you. So pastured is your gold standard. And sometimes we don't have access, but I think that's where, like what Paula offered, is looking online. If you don't have access to actually go somewhere physically to find these type of items, the internet's a great way to shop online and have it shipped to you. Okay, so after the mushrooms, we're going to add the vegetables. So what I did is I had already cut up the red pepper, the green pepper, and the broccoli. Put all of that in there. You can start seeing all of the color showing up. We got red and green, some white, brown. The one thing I realized I didn't have in here, oh yeah, carrot. So carrot, So you can buy carrots shredded. That's the easy way, right? Otherwise, I love my little food processor. It's perfect for jobs like this. So I just took two large two large carrots and just process them up. So now we have our orange represented. So now all the vegetables are in. And then we're going to do the sauce. We check the rice. I think the rice is ready. It smells very coconutty in here. Yeah, I'm going to let it go just for a few more minutes. Getting it all stirred up. All right, now we're going to add the tamari. So tamari is no wheat, but it's going to be soy. Okay, so and always get organic, because when it's coming from soy, you always want to have an organic source. If you can't do soy, then you could do coconut aminos. That's what I would put some salt in, because those are a lot less salty. Four tablespoons of that. I'm gonna put one more. That's what really gives it a nice flavor. So 4 to 6, again, to your taste. And then we're gonna add mirin. So mirin basically is like a sweetened sake. So it does have a little bit of sugar in it, but again, it's gonna go a long ways. You don't need much to go far. So we're gonna do 3 tablespoons. If you can't find mirin is a little bit harder to find. You can use just regular sake, or there's different types of rice vinegar, but the one that's going to be most comparable would be a seasoned rice vinegar. That would be another alternative. And then I'm going to stir that in. And it's really pretty thin. I mean, you've got a little bit of liquid in the pan. We just want to get it all stirred in. Again, why I like this huge pan, because then it stays in the pan and not in my stove where I have to clean it up.
Cindi, Sarah's got another question here. She's saying she didn't have mirin, so she used rice vinegar, but she's wondering if she should add anything to it to make it more comparable to mirin.
Good question. So your traditional rice vinegar doesn't have sugar. So this seasoned actually has a little bit of sugar in it. So that's why it's comparable to mirin. So like for 1 tablespoon, you have 5 grams of sugar. So it seems like a lot, but again, you're making a big portion of the stir fry. So it's not even 5 for that. What I would do if you want that sweet flavor, that's one of the umami flavors that we like, the savory, a little bit of sweet in it, is Lakanto has, and there's other brands too that have just plain monk fruit extract in drops. So you could add just a couple drops. A couple drops go a long way. So this is the natural sweetener. And then I'm going to put just a little bit of cornstarch. So the cornstarch is a thickener. So you don't need a whole lot. And again, it's going to be dependent on your desire. You know, if you don't mind having a little bit of liquid on there, because you're going to have some rice or some starch probably underneath. But otherwise, just put as much as you feel you need just to help thicken it a bit. And here too with cornstarch, we want to make sure it's non-GMO as well. So we want to stay as clean as possible with our ingredients. And it's pretty easy to find in your traditional stores. last thing we're going to put in is some type of nut. So we tend to go with a cashew. You could do a peanut. You could do almonds, like slivered almonds, pistachios. I think I recommended pumpkin seeds for some of you, depending on what nutritional plan you're following. Be diverse. Every time you do this too, I encourage you try different ingredients. Do a different grain or base, do a different protein, do a couple different vegetables than even what's on here, because there's no rule. And I like to keep my nuts in. I get the raw nuts, put them in a ball mason jar and in the fridge. So we got a whole bunch of ball mason jars. So that's going to keep it freshest, is by keeping the nuts cool. And you can even keep them, if you have room in your freezer, that would even be better. Okay, so we like our cashews. So I'm going to put a few more. I only did a half cup. So you can see we don't always measure either. No, there's no rule. Okay. So I'm just going to let that basically, I'm going to turn that off. And so here is the end product. You got all the different flavors, all the different colors, all the different major nutrients. I'm going to find my lid. I'm just going to let that sit. I'm going to turn off rice as well. And so then we just plate it up. So you could plate, just put a little bit of rice on a plate and then put your stir fry on top of that. But I think I'm just going to leave that here. And you can see that was a super quick recipe. So less than 30 minutes for sure. And that's a little bit of prep time, obviously, with the cutting ahead of time. But I am a huge advocate of, it doesn't have to take a long time in the kitchen to eat healthy.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Cindi. I was thinking, you had addressed in the recipe, which items are best to buy organic, and you've talked a little bit about the pasture-raised chicken. But I think you've mentioned in the past that there's a resource that you use to identify which fruits and vegetables should be organic versus those that don't need to be. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So that is one of the best resources, can be overwhelming as well, is the Environmental Working Group. So EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org. And so it's a nonprofit organization that does all of its research and education on how to eat and live healthfully. So they have what's called a dirty dozen list. And these crops change a tiny bit, not very much, year to year. And so what the dirty dozen lists are the crops that have the most pesticide and chemical applied. So those would be the ones you'd want to prioritize doing organic. Otherwise, if it's on the clean 15 list, then that doesn't have as much chemical. So if you're on a budget, then do those regular, do them conventional. But if you have the funds, always good to do the organics for all fruits and vegetables. But it's mainly a lot of your fruits these days. So I have the list right here of like what's the current list of what you want to buy organic: strawberries, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, cherries, and blueberries. And on the vegetable side of things, spinach, kale, collard greens, mustard greens, bell peppers, hot peppers, and green beans. Those are going to be the priorities to get organic. They also have water. Water is our most important nutrient. So they do have a tap water database that I use with every single client of mine, because we want to make sure that the water that they're drinking and cooking with and even bathing in is safe. And I remember just looking up a family members and where they live, in Illinois somewhere, but they had it over, I've never seen a chemical like 1,400 times what it should be of a chemical that is in your nonstick pans and surfaces. So it's crazy. And I've seen arsenic multiple times in people's water. So you want to make sure you're checking the quality of your water.
That's really helpful it's a great resource. So I think maybe as we, we will be sending out a thank you message to everyone that's participated. We'll be sending another copy of the PDF of this recipe. So if you didn't catch it in the first draft of the email, you'll get that. And I think we can also include maybe the link to the environmental working group, since, as Cindi mentioned, there's such a good resource for things like fruits, vegetables, water. They also have skincare products. They have a huge database, right?
Oh my gosh, Skin Deep. So that's another consumer guide. So if you go into their consumer guides, it's really helpful. And so Skin Deep is looking at all of the personal products that we use. Because on average, women, we're going to leave the house in the morning with 150 different chemicals on our face and on our face alone. And so that's how much stuff is in our personal products. And so you can put in what you're using to see what that rating is and why it's rated that way. And then you can also just look for a specific product. Maybe it's time, like you're getting low on something. It's like, I want to get something safe. So then you can look on there for a moisturizer or shampoo and see what their certified product lines are, or which ones they're suggesting because they are less toxic. So yeah, great resource. Like I said, it can be overwhelming. I think somebody asked about the water test. So in this case, it's not a water test, but if you go to ewg.org, you go to their consumer guides and you look at their tap water database. So that's if you have municipal city water, you can plug in your zip code and that will show you what you have. And if we have time, I'd be happy to navigate everybody over to that on here so that you can see what that looks like. For well water, I've used my tap score, MY tap, TAP score. So they will send you a kit. So you can select city water, you can select well water. And then they have like 3 different tiers of like how many analytes are going to be assessed. So that is because we have well water now. And so that's what we used.
Okay, that's so helpful. I would, encourage, if any of you have any other questions, you want to type them into the chat. That's great. We still have a little bit of time before the class officially ends, but I do want to point out that while Cindi is a partner of our clinic, she has her own business as well, and it's called Lockhart Wellness Solutions. Do you want to just talk briefly about that, Cindi?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal practice, Lockhart Wellness Solutions, is really derived at helping people unpack their story, understand the root causes of why they're at a place that they are. Maybe they're not feeling or functioning at their best. Maybe they have a chronic condition that they're not managing as well as they could. Or maybe there's a mystery, right? It's like, I don't feel good, but I go to all these docs and I can't get to the root. Whereas Minnesota Personalized Medicine is awesome at that. So I collaborate with the docs at Minnesota Personalized Medicine, and then also have a lot of my own clients that we work on getting to the roots, and then doing some testing if needed, and subjective and objective testing, and then really diving in together as a partnership versus a dictatorship. So I'm listening to my clients to learn what does their body need, because every body is unique. Everyone is N of one. So there's no one size fits all. There's no cookie cutter. And so we're coming to the table, we're trying things. So there is experimentation because, again, I don't have all the answers. I have what I think could work, but we got to put it into practice to see how it works. And as Pam mentioned, not only do I address nutrition and food as medicine, but also lifestyle as medicine. So we look at activity, just general movement and activity, as well as structured exercise. Making sure you're recovering well, making sure you're getting a well-balanced plan that's meeting your body's needs. We talk about sleep. Sleep is super, super important, probably more important than nutrition, believe it or not. And then, aligning with our circadian rhythms, and also how do we manage our stress? We can't get rid of stress, but we can manage our response to stress. And then supplementation. So, and then environment, like what we were just talking about with the Skin Deep protocol with our water, so all of those elements are addressed in our plan together, and really working in a phased approach, trying to build a solid foundation that we can work off of, and make sure that we're working with your body at that stage in time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. I noticed there are a couple other questions that came in. Maria's asking again for the well water site. Can you mention?
It's my tab. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh, wait. Oh, I need to be host. Never mind.
Okay.
So I believe it's my tap score.
Okay. I can.
My score.
Yeah, we can check on that. And then Sarah's also asking, do you work with the fasting mimicking diet and how to do it?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I have a fasting reset program that I run every month. So the kickoff for this December fast will be on November 30th. So on Thursday, the 30th at 6 p.m. Central. So it's a full hour learning all about it. Like, what does fasting mimicking mean? What kind of fast is this? What does it do? What are the health and metabolic benefits? And then what are we doing? So everyone in that program with me is making their own food. So you're going to have a vegan organic diet that you're preparing for 5 days. So you do 5 days a month of very plant-based, colorful foods that are low calorie. So anywhere from like 750 to 1100 for those 5 days to get you into ketosis and to help build what's called autophagy, which is when your cells are going through a housekeeping process. You're kicking out the old and you're regenerating with new, including your immune cells. So really powerful in regards to the science behind it, and really what's showing if you do 3 months in a row or 4 months in a row and then go to every quarter, you're able to sustain those metabolic and health benefits. And some people will go every month until they get to their end goal. But it's every month. So the kickoff is always the last Thursday of the month. And then the following month, the first Friday of that next month is when the group fast starts. So we've got a great community that goes through it with you. They're huge supporters. They have great ideas. I learn from them every month in regards to different tips and tricks that they're doing with the menu plan. And then you have 3 Zoom calls with me as a group. So we're again diving in. You got a lot of support. You get email support every day throughout the program. Get all the meal plan, the grocery list, the recipes. Anita and TJ, yes, they just completed number 11. So they are fasting reset gurus. They are experienced for sure, and a huge joy. They're the cheerleaders of our community group.
That's fantastic. Well, we'll be sure when we send out our follow-up email after this class that will include some information. You can find a lot of that on our website at mnpersonalizedmedicine.com, and on our Who We Are page. We have a big profile on Cindi too, and that'll bring you through to her website, and you can learn more about her fasting reset program. But I wanted to check to make sure, have we answered all questions? Is there anything else that we could touch on before we break?
Did anyone cook with us?
That's a great question. Yes, we have some people cooking alongside. Excellent. Yeah, when you mentioned smell-o-vision, I think that would be a great addition to Zoom. We need to write in to make some adjustments.
Especially
But
with cooking, for sure.
Well, thank you, Cindi. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're so happy to have you all here. This very much is in line with the work that we do at Minnesota Personalized Medicine. So we're thrilled and happy to have everybody move toward balancing those 5 fundamentals of health: the breathing, eating, sleeping, moving, and loving. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of the evening and go enjoy those beautiful meals.
Yes, enjoy dinner.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.